The BMW XM, and no, this is not a collaboration with satellite providers. This is their highest performance SUV ever made. And I saw the marketing materials when this thing was launched, and I honestly thought that it was fake. I thought this was a giant April Fool's joke, and then you started to see that they were very real about it. The contradictory nature of the marketing versus engineering is mind-bending in here, and we're going to discuss that throughout this video. We talked to some interior and exterior designers, and they said that this car was designed for somebody that wants a luxury, exotic shoe or piece of clothing on wheels. And it is targeting the ultra wealthy. Somebody that does not value traditional design. And when I first saw this in person, I thought it was a disfigurement of automotive engineering and design. And the more I looked at it, the more I had to find the pros and cons, because I'm from the Midwest. What do I know? I have zero taste, apparently, so why would I like this? So we're going to talk about what it does good and what it does bad, and we'll go from there. Let's start with the exterior. Let's talk about the good. The blue paint is some of the best blue paint out of any car on the planet. It has a huge wow factor. It's one of the reasons why people stop and stare at this thing, regardless of what you think about it. The copper accents all over, the front grille, the rear end moving the BMW badge to the glass. I mean, again, it's for somebody that wants a unique exterior, something that is more aligned with an ultra luxury product or like a handbag. And that's probably who you are that's going to like it. This is like a Kardashian mobile, or some influencer that has a ton of money is going to love the way this looks. On the inside, it gets a little bit more interesting because you can tell that they took a lot of what they did well on the X5M and the X7, and they tried to elevate it in terms of materials. When you look at the leather grain on the upper dash and on the doors, the brown leather, I mean, this is the best thing BMW's ever done. It does have a huge wow factor. It feels very bougie, but in some cases not a bad way, because they did a superb job integrating ambient lighting. When you look across the dash and upward, which you typically don't look upward, and I think they purposely did this, removing the moonroof, to create this geometric panel on the roof. The way that it kind of reflects light in the shadows at night, depending on how you change the color of the lighting, has an enormous wow factor. It also helps with sound deadening in here, which I'll get into the audio testing in a minute. And then you kind of look around and you do feel like you're in a very special space, namely sitting in the back seats. It's very relaxing. But that's kind of where the uniqueness ends, because this is by far a lot of reuse of what we've seen on the X5. I mean, from the steering wheel to the M buttons to the center console is a direct carryover from that. It makes sense this is coming out of the Spartanburg plant in South Carolina. So they didn't want to completely reinvent the wheel, which if you're coming into this brand not knowing what an X5 or an X7 is, you're going to be like, wow, this is the best thing ever. The main thing to note is there's a good level of customization with the software. The iDrive, the updated iDrive is a blessing and a curse. I'm not going to cover that much. They removed all the physical controls. Now everything's on the touchscreen. There are some hot buttons down here, and they've moved all the shortcut icons to the drop-down menu that you can kind of put what you want in there so you can get to it. But there's more interacting with the screen than there was with the previous generation of iDrive. The back seats do not have any adjustability, although it is an enormous space in the back, and there is no rear shades in the back, which is kind of strange in a car like this, that you're probably going to be in the back seats. The noise floor is really low. It is very quiet in here, which also lends to the beauty of the Bowers & Wilkins system. And if you've seen our videos, you'll know that the Bowers in the BMW is one of the best tested. The iX was the best tested SUV we'd ever been in terms of audio design, and this is very close. When you look at the frequency response, although there are some drop-offs in power level and SPL fluctuations, it is very even from the low end to the high end. There's a little bit of bass elevation at the lower frequency, but honestly, it's got the punch that most people are going to want. The hatch space in the back is enormous with the seats folded down. It's a true hauler. and there is an XM gym bag in the back with a gold zipper. And I immediately pulled out the charger in the back to gain more space. And then I came back in this car and I found that Jack put his merchandise in the back to show off because he couldn't stop telling me how everybody's looking at me. I get more looks than in my Lambo and my McLaren and all the special order cars that he keeps talking about, like his Corvette and B58 Supras and whatever else. But overall, the interior space is mostly well done, and I think it is a good evolution of the BMW brand. It's just really, do you value this? We're going to go in the shop and talk about the mechanical stuff, so let's just get on with it.
Mark.
I'm ready to go off-road or on the track. I mean, this is the highest performance vehicle I've ever been under. Tell me about it.
Well, Mark, you're in the presence of a true rock star, because that is what the XM was codenamed when they were developing it. This is supposed to be for non-introverts, people who want other people to know that they are important. So if you are under 30, because apparently that's what this car appeals to, millennials and Zoomers, you're going to be just blown away by the styling. And
what countries is this for? Like, who's the clientele?
Americans, because naturally, the Chinese, and the Middle East.
Is there any difference between what you get in these different countries?
Well, let me tell you, Mark, the true drivetrain is offered in China. You can get the B58 plug-in hybrid. As a viewer, I can commiserate to the level of fatigue that has set in with the constant sarcasm and jokes. These clowns are not funny. As a European, I can attest that we come on here to learn about German engineering that absolutely obliterates the competition. The B58's ceaseless heartbeat begins with a set of closed-deck, thermally optimized pistons promising an enduring relationship with performance. It's a piece of engineering elegance, marrying efficiency with raw strength in a dance that is as choreographed as a ballet, but as assertive as a maestro's crescendo. The B58's potent symphony is conducted through an artfully crafted single twin-scroll turbocharger, an ingenious feature that delicately balances performance with a respect for our precious environment. The turbocharger compresses this exhaust gas in two separate chambers, meaning reduced turbo lag and an aggressive torque curve. The result, the instantaneous response that has become the hallmark of BMW's driving experience.
All right, this is really hard for me because we have to remove the engineering part and let's just take this out and remove the body and the interior and talk about what it's actually doing, what's going on.
From an engineering perspective, it's remarkable, and a lot of this is you're going to see in the new M5. They've already just announced it. This drivetrain with the V8 is what's going to be found in the new M5 with a potentially smaller battery. So let's start with drivetrain. Let's work backwards. You get two different drivetrain options. In China and some of the other markets, you get a B58. Here, you get an S63, the latest iteration of it. You get an electric motor that's sandwiched between the gearbox, which is an 8-speed ZF, and the 4.4 liter. That electric motor, regardless of trim level, makes 150 horsepower.
Which is the same of what you find on the M60i setup in a mild hybrid. This just it takes it to the next level, makes it a plug-in hybrid, so you get a bigger battery. So you could go in pure EV mode for, honestly, when I test it, it's a little over 30 miles on the way you're driving this. It just disappears quick.
The gas motor makes a little less than 500 horsepower, and then the electric motor makes 150. And the top trim, which is the red line or
the red tag edition.
The red tag, that makes over 740. All they do is turn up the boost on the V8.
This makes the gas motor makes under 500 horsepower? Yep. That was 5 something.
They throttled it back to give you that difference. Yeah, it makes 480. The reality is, to the wheel though, they're both underrated.
Okay.
The base XMs are making 620, 640 to the wheels, which means the crank output is really closer to 700. When you're going flat out in this thing, you can really feel it. Platform-wise, suspension, it's on a variation of Clar. It's a hodgepodge between X5 and X7. You have all aluminum suspension links. The front is a multi-link, the rear is a 5-link. Front subframe is steel, rear is aluminum. Comes standard with rear steer. Comes standard with the 48-volt system, which helps negate roll, lean, and all that other fun stuff. The big thing is the suspension setup. They could not make the air ride springs or the air shocks work for this application. It's 6,000 pounds. It's supposed to be a performance car. It's supposed to be track capable. It can drift with an M differential. So the front springs are linear. They are steel coils. The rear are Progressive, and that's supposed to maintain their ride quality in there.
Just like their mentality here. This is a progressive vehicle. That's why they chose to make a pure German heritage car in South Carolina with all their supply chain coming from Mexico. That's exactly, as somebody that's looking for this, that's what I want. But nobody knows that.
So with that, Mark, let's go take this thing for a quick
We
drive.
forgot to talk about two things.
Drive modes.
Yeah, drive modes. Can you figure it out?
There are lots of drive modes in this thing, and you can configure them with a little like pig ears behind the steering wheel.
They make no sense. There's so much of it. It's mind-boggling what they've done here, and you're going to need a huge user manual, and guaranteed if you go to the dealership, they're not going to know what all of it does.
You can calibrate the all-wheel drive system.
Yeah.
You can calibrate the gearbox. Of course, you can calibrate brake feel. This is brake-by-wire like all modern BMW products. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, it's the first BMW with rear steer as standard, Jack, and it's got adaptive sway bars, too.
I talked about that already.
Oh, I've blacked out. All
right, let's go drive it, Mark.
Wait a second. You forgot about the cost of the tires. These are 23-inch standard here, Jack.
No, optional 23s.
Oh, I thought it came standard on 23s.
No,
Oh, how much are the 23-inch tires?
So in the rear, they're like over $800.
No, that's not a big deal. We forgot about something else.
What else?
Do you honestly think that somebody that spends half their life changing outfits and putting makeup on is going to understand what anything we just said? Jack, it's time. You ready for a high-performance SUV?
Show me what this rock star can do, Mark.
Yeah, this thing's no joke in terms of straight line acceleration, and we talked about plenty of philosophy in the interior and the shop. We know everything about it, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty of the drivability, because at the end of the day, that's what this is about. You're not looking at it, it's not about the philosophy. How does it drive?
Let's talk about drivetrain first. Okay. This is their first implementation, at least widely used, of a twin-turbo V8 and a plug-in hybrid drivetrain. So there's an electric motor between the gearbox and the engine. I did not drive this in EV mode, because when you gave it to me, it had about 3 miles of range. I drove this as a hybrid. I think as a hybrid vehicle, the handoff in regular driving when you're not leaning on the EV is ultra smooth. If you're creeping, it does a good job. The handover is almost Toyota smooth for how much power it has. And when you're going flat out, as we talked about in the shop, this thing is ballistically fast. It is very clearly making more than 648 horsepower. This is a very, very fast vehicle, particularly when you think about that it's 6,000 pounds. The gearbox it does a couple weird things here and there, but mostly the 8-speed's calibrated pretty well. How do you feel about the EV part of this?
Well, so you're taking what we experienced on the X7 M60i, where now all the twin-turbo V8s are getting the electric motor sandwich between the drivetrains. So this is on steroids, right?
Yes.
You're taking a bigger electric, bigger battery pack and all that, and you're maximizing it.
Yeah.
In EV mode, you fucking idiot. In EV mode, I will say that this thing is really surgy. It's the throttle calibration is way too twitchy. Way too twitchy. Like, if you're sitting parked and it's in EV mode and you're like trying to get this thing to go, it's not going. It will not go. And you're like, is it on? Is it off? And then you hit the gas and it like jerks you forward. And I can't tell you how many times I almost drove right into the garage door because I didn't know if it was on or not. And it's like things like that, like in slow movements or strange movements like that where you're just creeping, I think it's way too sensitive. It's not progressive enough like what you would expect from a traditional EV.
It's because you're soft.
I know. I know. What can I expect? That the people that are going to be driving this are probably going to be putting it into walls and all that.
Nothing about this driving experience is linear or normal feeling, right? This car stays on the road purely through maths and science, right? All electromechanical systems are how the 6,000-pound vehicle can
pseudo drift or spin out like you just did. It can get through corners. It can launch quickly. None of these systems are about making this a better driving experience. They're all here to make it so you can show all your friends why you just spent $170,000 on an SUV. I mean, the fact that you can go flat out in this boat around corners, get rear rotation out of it because the rear steer and the sway bars and the adaptive dampers, and you can go flat out and run down a sports car.
This is,
Yeah.
I don't care. I'll be honest.
I know you don't care.
I think, we talked about this with the Cayenne GT and some of these other sport SUVs. What I expect from this is, and I think most people are going to feel the same way, is when you look at what they're trying to do here, none of it makes any sense. There's zero cohesion versus what they're trying to do on exterior, interior. It rides.
Horribly.
Let's get into that. Like, we can get over the drivetrain tuning because they're going to perfect that. Let's be honest. They're going to take this and it's going to go into 20 other cars.
Yeah, it'll be in the new M5 for sure.
Yeah, and they're going to refine it. They're going to smooth out linearity and inputs and all that. It's not going to be so jerky in the more mainstream cars. But I can't forgive the fact that this is supposed to be some, like, esoteric, weird, like, status luxury product, and it rides like ass. It does not handle, like, harsh pavement, harsh impacts. You don't, and I know why we talked about it in the shop, why they don't have air ride and some of all of that detail, but this is a far worse car from it. Like, you're not driving this like an idiot, and you're not taking it to the track. So why should I have to deal with the fact that it can't handle like normal pavement, like normal driving?
The combination of having 23s and ultra low profile tires means that when you go over expansion joints, it sounds like someone's hitting a bass drum in the car and it reverberates to the vehicle. Because the engineers had to figure out how to make this thing handle, their compromise, and this is a problem that you've seen in a lot of BMW performance SUVs, is it's too stiff.
Yeah.
And Porsche does it better. I mean,
but the X5M doesn't have this problem. And
not to this degree.
And I think the X5M is, to be fair, is like...
It's stiff.
It's stiff, but it's like a real car compared to this for far less money. You can get an X5M for like $125,000, and it does a lot of what this does in terms of performance. And again, I feel like why do we continue talking about these brands that are turning SUVs into sports cars? Like, I don't
because they
understand.
make money.
I get that, but it's just so stupid. It's so counterintuitive.
If you don't know and I had this conversation with you earlier, what matters to you more? The fact that you're making more money than you've ever made, or that two assholes living in the Midwest don't like your product because it's not a purist M car?
No, I don't even care about a purist M car. I don't care about that. This is just, it's a waste of okay, it's not a waste. They're deciding that they want to waste engineering resources to turn a barge into something that's high performance because they know that's the future of cars. How are they going to get their EV platforms that are going to be 7,000 pounds? How are they going to get them to handle? And this is the experiment for it.
And their argument, I'm sure internally, was, do I blow budget on a dedicated esoteric two-door sports car like you and I would want? Or do I blow budget on some big boat SUV that they target to, like the Kardashians, who were vain, who really like other people looking at you to buy this product? So they took something compromised, then the engineers had to figure out how to get it to hit their performance targets. I admire the engineers for getting it to do the things that it does. Do I like it? No, this is not for me or you. I mean, I don't think it's a good car for it either.
I don't think it's a good car. I'll be honest. Like this is a perfect example. There's no excuse for this to ride like ass on broken pavement. I'm sorry. Like, I just don't get it. If you're going to give me the outside and you're going to give me all the power and performance and all this, I feel like they could have done a better balance in terms of trying to connect all of these systems into a better and more refined driving experience. I don't think anybody that's rich to this level that's buying this as a vanity piece is going to be happy with the way that this thing rides. I mean, am I wrong in that if you're coming from like a Land Rover or something really expensive?
I just don't think people who buy cars like this
have any idea
or care.
Yeah.
Like, if you had, hey Jack, buy a Cayenne Turbo GT, which while it is not an EV plug-in, sort of fulfills the same like niche of ultra high performance SUV, or buy this thing, they're both around $200,000. The Turbo GT, which handles every bit as well, if not better than this, doesn't ride as bad as this because they use air ride. I don't know, man. I mean, you and I can go back and forth on this. I don't like the car. I told you that many times, but I like elements of it. And I think the only thing that kept me interested in this car is the fact that all of this shit in this car is going to be in future BMWs. Hopefully they implement those BMWs in a more focused way, but clearly BMW is not the company that it was 20 years ago, where they cared about a driver's car experience with everything.
But I don't expect that, and I don't care about that either. Like, you know, for me, I don't like M cars. I've never really understood. You know, you have to go back like 20 plus years to be like, okay, M cars. That's been gone for so long. But this whole like taking that and trying to inject it into this, it doesn't make any sense. Like
it's just cynical marketing.
Yeah, it's almost. I said this at the beginning. It seems like a joke to me. I really don't understand. So I guess I'm not going to. And if you have the kind of money where you do understand this, tell me about it in the final thoughts, Jack.
All right, let's do it.
Final thoughts on the BMW XM, codenamed Rockstar. Do I think this is a good car? Do I think it's a well-executed product? No. Doesn't make sense to turn a 6,000-pound SUV into your flagship performance vehicle. It suffers, right? It won't handle as well as a dedicated sports car, and it's not an ultimate luxury vehicle because it's too stiff, and some of the packaging on the inside is very compromised. From a styling perspective, do I think it's hideous? Yes. But this appeals to the same crowd of people who like things like Balenciaga shoes. They are styled for vanity and to let other people know that you are rich. And if you like that, you're going to love this. And again, we live in the Midwest, so what do I know about styling? Besides, I'm sure they're going to sell every single one of these. From a technological perspective, the engineering, the electromechanical systems in this car are remarkable. What they can do with a 6,000-pound vehicle is very impressive. And the drivetrain. If you like V8s and you want them to stick around, this is sadly what you're going to have to see. Twin turbo V8s with a mild hybrid or a plug-in setup. And BMW has executed this very well. It's seamless technology. And I know for a fact this is going to be what's in the upcoming M5 and all the other various BMW V8 high-performance M products. So again, look at this at its individual components to see what you value from an engineering perspective, but again, from an overall product perspective, it's not really my cup of tea, but what do I know? Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon.